Good afternoon. My name is Dave Butler. I'm CEO of the UK Apartment Association, UKAA. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar, which is hosted and presented by Movebubble, one of our most active members. And our host today, our chair today, is David Buzzard, who's a commercial director at Movebubble. And we're going to be covering a fascinating topic of post-COVID, what that's going to be and how we're going to move out of it. We've got a distinguished panel, Alastair Mullens from FRICS, Jon Pitt from Grainger, and Nick Woodward from Essential. They'll introduce themselves in due course, so I won't say too much about them. Not really too much I know about them, unfortunately. Anyway, so just a few reminders, a few housekeeping rules. One is we'll be recording this session. In your top right left-hand corner of your screen, you should see a little recording button. We'll be posting the video on our website after the event, so you can relive the excitement. The other thing is that we do have a chat facility and a Q&A facility down at the bottom of your screen. Do make use of those. We'll be attempting to answer questions during the course of the afternoon. Try and pick those up live. And any that we don't pick up live, we'll add answers when we finish the session. We'll answer the questions afterwards and send answers out. Just before I hand over to David, I'd just like to remind you that this is one of a series of webinars the UK is hosting to help us get through these difficult times. On Monday, we've got what promises to be a very lively session, a legal panel looking at construction and development issues now and in the future. And then we've got webinars every day next week, I think. So we'd love you to join us and hope you'll enjoy today's session, at which point I'll pass you over to David Buzzard.
Thank you very much. So today we're going to talk about business as usual post-COVID-19, presented by myself, David Buzzard, Commercial Director at Movebubble. Just a brief overview of Movebubble. We're one of the largest rental platforms for BTR in London and Manchester. And we're starting to see a recent surge in renter demand. So it just kind of felt that it was apt for today's webinar to be a positive outlook on the future of BTR. Post COVID. So with the rental market showing signs of recovery, are we ready for business as usual? And how can we use technology to come out of the long lockdown stronger than before? So today, as mentioned, I'm joined by a great panel. Jon Pitt, Director of Lettings at Grainger, Alastair Mullens, Head of Virtus, Canary Wharf Group, and Nick Woodward, Head of Lettings at Central Living. Apologies, it's not a very diverse panel today, but they're all good guys. Perhaps you could give me a quick overview, or give the audience a brief overview of each of your businesses. Keep it short. Let's maybe start with Grainger.
Thanks, David. Well, Grainger, for those who aren't familiar with us, we're the largest listed landlord in the UK. Got about 9,000 homes, and out of that, there's 9,000. That's a portfolio of PRS and about 1,500 build-to-rent homes as well. We've got a pipeline of another 9,000 over the next few years, which are being delivered at the moment. But of the 1,500. That comprises about 8 sites at the moment, and everywhere from Bristol, Sheffield, Manchester, London, and we've actually just launched our 9th site this week. So we've had a bit of a soft launch. Clearly, unusual times, but a soft launch for pre-letting for a scheme at Pontoon Dock called Millet Place, about 250 units, and that's a mixed tenure scheme of PRS and affordable. And we've got another 3 schemes launching this year: Manchester, London, and Southampton, hopefully. And over the next few years, we're due to launch something every 2 to 3 months. So we do everything from source the investment opportunity, develop, project manage, forward fund, and then operate the building as well. So all self-sufficient. We use our own platforms. We're building a pretty significant tech platform at the moment that's due to start launching internally later this year. And we're an all-in-one BTR operator.
Thank you. Not as brief as I was hoping for, but you know, that's it's a big. You're a big company, I guess, aren't you? So that's how about yourself, Alastair? Give us a.
So Virtus, part of the Canary Wharf Group, as you mentioned, we are the build to rent owner operator arm of the group. We currently have 3 developments, 2 which are in the pipeline, in Newfoundland, which is 636 apartments, and Water Street, which is 174 apartments. Those will probably now most likely come online later this year, or early 2021, depending on how the coronavirus affects operational efficiencies on site for the construction team. And George Street, 10 George Street, is our first building that went live, first occupations in February. So we were just beginning to build nice momentum into lease up when the coronavirus lockdown came in. But I say, 3 buildings in the portfolio at the moment, all on the Canary Wharf estate, and they are all build to rent assets, sort of sitting at the upper quartile of the market, and very much targeted at our local market, our office occupiers, the tenant base there.
That's great, thank you. How about yourself, Nick?
So Central Living are build-to-rent operator backed by the Washington State Pension Fund, who have many real estate platforms across the world, from student to storage facilities to a lot of multifamily in the US. Central Living is their first real estate platform, residential real estate platform in the UK. Predominantly we operate in London and in the regions, or particularly commuter belts. We have 4 live schemes, 3 of which are in London, 1 of which in Maidenhead. It comprises 539 apartments, and they're all stabilised currently. Next development to come online will be in Swiss Cottage, but that is at least 2 years away, probably more given the current climate.
Okay. No, that's great. No, I think it'd be great to obviously go into a bit more detail on those buildings, actually, like you've mentioned, with issues with you know, construction, supply, etc. So yeah, I guess should we jump into it? So the way we've structured today's panel, we've looked at key issues. We've got a list across 3 different areas. How is the market? How is the market, and is it showing signs of recovery? Are we ready for business as usual? And how can we use technology to come out of the lockdown stronger? So let's start with the market. So from Movebubble's perspective, we're seeing a 30% increase week on week in inquiries and viewings. We know there is a pent-up demand from the fact that renters aren't able to move right now, and that's reflected in, you know, in the markets. Grainger's share price, for example, you know, was rallying on the back of the fact that you know, not many renters actually moving. So we know that there is a pent-up demand there. I guess maybe to the panel, are you seeing signs of the same signs of recovery? And do you feel, I guess, lifting lockdown, will there be a surge in demand? Perhaps go with Alastair first.
Yes, I think what we've seen through lockdown is that there is still obviously interest there. There's still people inquiring. Inquiries definitely dropped off a cliff somewhat when lockdown came in, and especially when the government then said that home moves were not essential. But what we did see is those that were still getting in touch were serious about moving, either during the lockdown time because they had a necessity to do that, or they're looking to try and secure an apartment for a later date, and they're trying to put that in as early as possible, and also potentially take advantage of any sort of offers we might be doing at this time. So what we have seen in the last week or so, I would say, is where we had a sort of trickle of inquiries. Those inquiries now are moving forward to sort of offers, and very much we've got sort of a number waiting in the wings now, waiting to see what happens on Sunday, to then make a decision to move forward from there. So I think in terms of future demand, you know, we're hopeful that the market, obviously there will be some pent-up demand there. I think it would just be interesting to see where that market pushes to, whether we still get our summer peak, our sort of August, September peak market, or whether that's going to push on further, or whether we don't see it at all. Obviously, we're all hopeful that it will very much come in, and whether it comes in slightly later than usual, it will still be there. For us in our market specifically, we're hopeful that renters are making more and more choices to rent slightly bigger apartments, rent buildings where there is space to escape from the apartments if they have to work from home again. And also, thinking about public transport in London, clearly the tube and trains are not somewhere you necessarily want to be when there's a virus like the current one out there at the moment. And so obviously we are 5 minutes walk from a number of big offices, and hopefully we can pick up a few people that make the decision to live closer to the office.
Yeah, I mean, Canary Wharf is going to be really interesting to see what happens there, how quickly the offices go back, and yeah, where that demand is for you guys, definitely. I guess Nick, I guess from the supply status you mentioned about one of your buildings, for example, there's going to be a supply issue there. So where do you think this leaves you as a business?
Just going back to some of Alastair's points, which I think I certainly echo as well, and we're seeing quite a lot of that. In terms of renter inquiries and demand, I wouldn't say that our inquiries have dropped in terms of the volume, the number of people that are registering with us. What I would say is that potentially their budgets have changed and they've reassessed how much they're willing to spend on a flat, how much they're willing to spend on this lifestyle, purely because of financial constraints or their current job situation, furloughed, or who they worked with have maybe gone out of business, or whatever the case may be. So the demand, I wouldn't say has increased for us, but equally I wouldn't say has gone down, but certainly what people are willing to pay has definitely changed during this period. And from our point of view, we're having to be quite clever in negotiating with offers, because obviously if an applicant comes in, we want to service them as best as possible. So we're having to be quite creative with some of our offers to match people's new budgets, I guess, is how we've been tackling the demand issue. And that's through things like offering rent discounts at the front end and then ramping those rents back up to our original marketing price at the back end, so it doesn't really affect our valuation too much. So we're obviously, all the assets are done on a valuation basis. So hopefully come next year, if you're a bit creative with these offers, i.e. discount at the start, for say first 3 months, and then after 3 months you're back up to where our original pricing was, it doesn't affect too much. Hopefully by the end of when we come out of this period and this time next year. So
you see it more of a blip than any issues, really?
I think so at this stage, yeah.
That's good. It's good to hear. And Jonathan, you're seeing the same thing?
In terms of demand, yeah, I think really very similar to the other two guys here. We saw a pretty significant drop in the first couple of weeks of lockdown. And I think that was largely in line with the market. So speaking to others in the build to rent sector, and also speaking to a lot of our agents as well. And then probably 4 weeks ago now, that drop quite quickly lifted. And it's interesting to hear your 30% week on week increase at Movebubble. We've maintained sort of fairly good inquiry numbers, and really it comes down to we would expect high inquiry numbers when lots of people are at home, but it really comes down to two different camps. So in certain parts of the country, we've got people who've got a real need to move, and we're sticking to the government guidelines around distancing, etc. But those who need to move are able to move, and then those who can't, who don't have to move yet, will use the marketing collateral that we've got to make an informed decision to come and visit us as soon as they're able to. So in terms of pent up demand, I'm pretty confident that will increase over the coming weeks, and I'm hoping that we're able to start to see a return to normality in terms of access to our properties and allowing our agents on site as well. And I think one of the big challenges coming out of this, and really sort of comparing to the 2008 financial crisis, when Nick and Alastair are probably a bit too young for that. But it's the risk of oversupply in the market over the next few months, whether that's from lots of people who vacated properties, or the accidental landlord. So that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I'd read something about the amount of short-term lets also coming to the market. you know, we'll be kind of similar space. You know, the properties might be similar, not in a, you know. So it's, yes, definitely there's going to be more demand. There's going to be potentially more pent up demand, but yeah, there will be equivalent amount of supply potentially. So yeah, you have to, all of your buildings need to be have its own merits, and yeah, you need to push those I guess incentives from a tech point of view. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Dev, I was going to come in and say I think the supply thing is absolutely key, because not only, like you say, there's a lot of the short-term market, the Airbnb market has been hit very hard, and there's a lot of buy-to-let landlords in that space or investors in that space moving, saying, right, well, I need to go back to the long-term rental market because that's where I'm going to get my secure income. But also, you know, house builders this time that were on the verge of completing and obviously handing over a number of their units to buy-to-let landlords, they've still happened. You know, in our local market, there's still buildings there, private sale buildings, leasehold buildings that are completing, and that buy-to-let stock is still coming into the market. And obviously, at the moment, there's very few renters in the market who are taking up that stock. So I certainly think, although we might see some pent up demand, the stock levels will likely be slightly higher when we come out of this. So it will be something to look at.
Yeah. I'd also say on the buy-to-let investors and the buy-to-let stock, that's actually, from our point of view, the biggest challenge regarding pricing and how competitive we are, rather than actually our standard build-to-rent competitors like Vertus, because we're all operating in completely different areas, different markets, different sections of the market. But for us, a buy-to-let investor who is invested in a flat in a brand new build has all the same facilities pretty much as a build-to-rent development like ours. It has the gym, it has the concierge. Okay, it doesn't have the management, but their criteria is completely different to, say, an institutional landlord, where actually some have to just fill their flat because they obviously have mortgage payments to make and they just need the income in, rather than actually try and make money on that investment at this period. So, for instance, you know, I've spoken to various people. A lot of buy-to-let landlords are cutting prices from their asking by, say, 20%. And actually, if you're an applicant and you're looking at a buy-to-let property that has pretty much all the same kit in it to central living, build-to-rent investor, it's not really that much difference other than the price. So you're talking maybe £200 a month difference, and that's what we're finding is a big challenge, is actually to remain competitive with those buy-to-let investors in this current climate.
Yeah, I think it's really poignant point at the moment, and yeah, I think we definitely need to look at ways to drive that demand for you guys. I know that, I mean, it's probably leading on to probably the next point actually, but I think the business as usual, I know that, you know, we've been really utilizing the video walkthroughs, and you know, from the BTR side, I know that, you know, the videos have really been able to showcase your you know, the walkthroughs on Movebbubble, for example. You know, the content that we can provide on the platform enables you guys to really kind of sell and your offering, because I think one of the biggest, you know, pluses and bonuses of a BTR building is the amount of, you know, the great communal spaces you offer, and so whether is it price, or is it being able to showcase your buildings in a better light, or, you know, getting that point across that look, all the facilities and the great facilities you can have.
I think it's absolutely key. It's very hard on any sort of normal portals sometimes get that information across, talking about Rightmove and Zoopla, and actually we don't get many leads either through our agents, Knight Frank and Savills, or for ourselves through Rightmove and Zoopla, quite simply because we can't show well enough there what we offer above and beyond. And I definitely think in the Movebubble videos and walkthroughs that were created were brilliant at selling the USPs of our building. And at the end of the day, that's not going to suit every renter, but for those in our market that is what they're looking for, it definitely really helps. And I think what we found through the lockdown is obviously we have moved to a lot of virtual viewings. We don't have a specific virtual viewing software, but our teams work really hard with videos, WebEx or Zoom calls with applicants. I think that's the key with any sort of virtual viewing, is that you have the ability to make it as personable, as much like a real viewing as possible by being there, walking the applicant through, the customer through, and answering any questions they have as they go around the property. And then in the same way, for our leasing teams, we've asked them the right questions to try and, you know, persuade that renter whether it's the right time to make a decision to move or to rent. So I think my key on the virtual viewings is just to make it as real as possible and as interactive as possible with the customer you're taking round. So actually, there's whatever software you might be using or videos, it's more about the person behind it controlling it and interacting still with the customer, because we still are, although we might be working remotely at the moment for a lot of our teams, it's still about that interaction with the customer.
Yeah, we toed and froed kind of with the type of video that would be best, and we ran loads of tests, and we found that renters, they prefer it when there's it's real. They want to see what is what exactly am I renting here, and that's why the way that we've done it and trying to capture it quickly and using a normal phone enables anyone to take to upload videos of the content. And the other thing that is really important obviously is furnishing a property. We found also that renters will inquire and be more positive, and if it's furnished, the apartment that you're trying to rent, and also if there's someone they can identify with, like if and that's why we have intros and outros on the video content, is they identify if there's someone at the front of the video, so they don't necessarily like it when it's just content and there's no human interaction there, and there's no human. So again, it's something else we took from data. So I think it's it's really, really key. The other thing actually probably worth mentioning is that videos, having a video on gives you an 800, from what we've seen at the minute on data, it gives you an 800% increase in receiving an inquiry, having a video. And obviously lockdown is a big push on that at the moment. That's obvious, but I think it does feel like it potentially could be the norm. What do you think, Nick? Is that your thoughts as well?
Yeah, I think prior to obviously all of this kicking off, we hadn't really put too much. I wouldn't say we hadn't put too much value in video, but we certainly we'd underestimated its benefits. I mean, mainly because you're not thinking about something like this happening. So we started in a bit of an awkward position with our videos. In the fact that during lease up, we didn't really do too much, and we didn't put too much into that. So we didn't really have any videos, and now we're stabilized across all of our assets. It's very mixed bag in terms of our videos. We've had to, when there's a vacant flat, an ops team has maybe had to take a video. It's then not as professional. We've at times had to ask a resident if they wouldn't mind taking a video, that kind of stuff. So it's really important to get them professionalized. And I think for us at the moment, it is a bit of a mixed bag. Some videos have worked great. What we're doing is sticking alongside a video of an apartment, a brand video, which highlights, so you can obviously see the spaces and all the rest of it in the apartment on a walkthrough. But with the brand video, what we're tying into that is actually these spaces being used. Now that's from footage from resident parties, all of that kind of stuff. So it just builds a picture, builds a picture for the applicant of the brand, actually what these spaces can do, how they're used, how they build community, that kind of stuff. So we've added those alongside in our marketing emails with individual videos. But also I think it's important to show as much information as possible on the area where your asset sits. I think from our experience, applicants go on viewings of the building, and then they'll do a walk of the area just to see if they like it, see what's about, what the parks, where you can go to eat, drink, all of that kind of stuff. And you obviously don't get that right now from just a virtual tour of the building. So we're also including area guides, best places to eat, things to do as part of our marketing collateral, just to build a much wider picture. Because I think the thing for us is, last thing we want is someone to move in and hate the area because there's nothing, it's not for them, because then it's essentially a waste of money, to be perfectly honest, bringing that applicant through the door. So we're trying to be as open, transparent as possible with absolutely everything.
Okay, yeah, it's great. All right, Sam, well, I think probably leads us on to probably the next point really was how can we use technology to come out of the lockdown stronger? And this probably leads into also kind of utilizing technology, but also dealing with the ongoing issues. I mean, I wrote down a few key words earlier: social distancing, self-isolation, adaptation to home working, hygiene, the value of green spaces, or are we genuinely skeptical of whether anything will change? So I think, on that point is probably over to maybe Jonathan. What do you think is, how is your business going to have to adapt to all this? And, or do you think it's just going to stay as it is?
I think it certainly won't stay as it is. No one could plan for this. And similar to what Alastair and Nick said, about the videos, it wasn't something we were geared up to do virtual tours on all of our stock. And I've just seen a question come up about, do you think renters want to see or trust videos or professional videos? And actually, what surprised us is the number of people who will make a decision based on video content. And similar to Nick, we've had professional videos of our buildings done, but actually people want to see the individual units. So just prior to the lockdown, we had our teams and our agents going around, not only on our build to rent schemes, but elsewhere, and filming those apartments on their iPhones. And it's proven to be effective. You use that alongside the sort of more corporate marketing. So I think going forward, that is already shaping our longer term marketing strategy and how we can we can conduct the viewing and that customer journey online. We're hoping that that's not a necessity. Obviously, we're hoping that people will be able to come to the buildings when at the appropriate time, but certainly to allow them to make that informed decision. And then I think really sort of going forward from there, that our customer journeys pretty slick as it is, and works remotely, and we're improving that continuously. So I think it's that whole customer journey to get people into the building and the tenancy starting, and then we're also looking at how we activate our amenity space, and how that can be used. For I think one of the results of this will be more people will be able to work from home, be more comfortable working from home. Employers will be more comfortable letting their people work from home. So making sure that our communal space and amenity space is works for them. And just one other point, actually, we're launching a building in Seven Sisters in northeast London in end of the summer. And before lockdown, actually, the show apartments are designed to show space within the apartments, within the actual living space, as a home office. So that was something our onboarding team and development team are already looking at how we can evolve our overall customer proposition.
Yeah, nice. I mean, it was one of the questions actually came up from the audience, actually, about how do you think communal spaces designs will change. So as you say, it's having to kind of work now with people working from home, needing more space. If they've got a smaller apartment, they need to get out, but maybe they're not able to go that far from the and they obviously want the the high speed Wi-Fi, etc. as well. So going to cafes, I just don't think they'll be able to keep up with Zoom, the amount of bandwidth it requires. It's we're going to all need kind of 5G, high speed Wi-Fi and broadband, and then need a space to do that. So I think kind of from
Sorry, David, I was just going to come in on the sort of amenity piece, and I think a little bit part of the question was on the sort of short term. Does it get closed down? Is it a time restricted thing? We keep our space open as much as possible. It's an extension of the resident's home. They can use it as they want, when they want, within reason. But I think certainly in the short term, we're going to have to look to some sort of procedure whereby we almost have a full-time cleaner in place. The certain areas can only have a certain number of people in. We've already started to remove furniture, so only a certain number of people can sit at any given tables and things like that. But I think that will certainly look at increasing operation. We'll have to increase operational costs during this time if we're going to reopen these spaces. And we've already had increased operational costs in terms of cleaning over the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks with the outbreak, because obviously we've been trying to protect our residents. But I think that is the massive benefit of build to rent, is that we over, a leasehold block that someone might be living in, and Nick was comparing, how can we compete against a buy-to-let landlord if they're dropping their rents? Well, quite simply that, my feeling would be that most buy-to-let leasehold landlords aren't willing to pay much more on their service charge at the end of the year for an extra cleaning regime during an outbreak. Whereas obviously, as investors, we're very, very happy to do that. It's about protecting our residents, looking after our customers at the end of the day. And I think the change of amenity space, I think it'd be really interesting to see how buildings come forward now, and also how current existing assets look to adapt their amenity space more towards maybe away from cinema rooms into co-working spaces. We've certainly got a multifunction room which is currently purposed as a gym studio, but we probably look to change that to a co-working space in the future, because as John mentioned, more and more people are likely to work from home. Companies realise they don't need 100% of the workforce in the office, and therefore people are going to want to have that space in their home or around their home where they can escape to and work in a nice comfortable area. And then finally on that is, we're very happy that we chose the fastest possible broadband we could get into our building, into the apartments, 350 meg, because we haven't had a single complaint from residents working from home, and albeit we are at a relatively low occupation at the moment, about internet speeds. And I think that's going to be another big factor when people are thinking about setting up in the future. Where can they get the fastest possible internet across the whole building as well, in the amenity space, as well as in people's apartments?
No, definitely, absolutely. We've had another question in actually. Is there any cost benefits of not having to do physical viewings for you guys? Is there anything? I mean, for us, we've moving now to a video first platform. So we see such benefit in videos that we're actually moving to that. But I guess it probably leans on the fact that people are with social distancing as well. There's benefits for both parties potentially, is where you're not having to show everyone around every 2 minutes, and then also potentially the renter doesn't have to travel on, and then obviously potentially for that social distancing piece as well.
I'll add to that. Obviously, from a productivity point of view, a virtual viewing is quicker than having someone visit the building. But I don't think that those individuals get the full benefits. One thing we have seen is certainly outside of London, less activity from agents. So in London, our agents are still pretty active. Outside of London, less so. And actually, that's meant that where there has been that demand to get access to the likes of Clippers Key in Manchester or Brook Place, Sheffield, they're coming to us directly. So yes, it is cheaper to do these virtual viewings.
Yeah, I think it's sorry, go on.
Sorry, the one thing I would add to that is, yes, it's cheaper, but I think there's real value add of having face-to-face interaction. So we have obviously on-site team, and I think videos are great, but having that one-to-one interaction builds a real rapport with the customer and starts that customer journey. If obviously when they decide to move in, that's a great experience from the get-go, from an inquiry. I think also having face-to-face interaction, an individual, it's far easier to sell the brand, sell the product. It's potentially anywhere between 25 minutes to 45 minutes on a viewing journey. So yeah, videos are great, and they're obviously, from a business point of view and commercial point of view, they're obviously a lot cheaper, but I still think at times you don't get that one-to-one value add.
I think it's engagement, isn't it? It's being able to engage them. That a video enables you to engage them, get them locked in, get them interested, and then as you say, then you can then maybe take them to the next level. But it's where there is potentially so much stock or supply in the market, you want to be getting your best, your best foot forward, don't you, and sell your product. And the average time people spend looking at videos is 17 seconds. You have 17 seconds for someone to be engaged or not. So you have to just utilize that time best you can. Okay, great. Well, yeah, sorry.
I was just going to reiterate and say that I think videos definitely have their purpose, and I think we have a disparate spread portfolio, they're going to definitely give you a cost saving, because you don't have to be sending people out to do viewings. But in our model, where we have currently 3 buildings all within 1,000 meters of each other with a centralized leasing team, the cost benefit is probably relatively minimal. Obviously, yes, it's a shorter time to do a virtual viewing, most likely, but I agree with Nick totally. That still having that human face-to-face interaction, even if it is at a distance of 2 meters, is probably still better at this point than the video technology that we have. Because I think you notice even here having a webinar, we're jumping in on top of each other. So to be actually able to interact properly is obviously always far easier in person.
Very good, thank you. Probably jump back into, we'll have some more questions at the moment, but just jumping back and maybe finishing off, I guess, on the technology piece. So kind of from, I guess, how are we going to maybe adapt buildings, whether it is kind of opening more green spaces or kind of the design piece? Is your teams now already kind of starting to design buildings in a different way, or looking at designing, or is that something now going on in the background? Essentially, Nick, you want to answer that one?
Sorry. In all honesty, I mean, it's obviously still very early days, and I think a lot of it will depend on people's perception in terms of how people, whether they just completely change their way of life, completely change their thoughts on interacting with people. I mean, things like wider hallways, all of that kind of stuff. But to be honest with you, it's not really, we don't have too much at this stage a thought on it. I think there's still not enough data, and I think it really will depend on people's perception post-COVID. Once we've come out of this, actually, are people willing to interact? Are people willing to use the spaces? Is this going to have subconsciously an impact on them and how they feel they can interact with strangers? So, I mean, to be honest, I can't really answer that right now.
I think we're looking, certainly all of our future projects, and those that are already close to completion, obviously, that the amenities and stuff are all set, and that the technology and functionality throughout the building, the apartments, is all pretty much set. But I think we would certainly look at the future. In the future buildings, the amenity space we have is all relatively flexible at the outset, and we look to design that in as late as possible, but keeping it as cost effective as possible, by ensuring that we're trying to keep up with the market. Because quite honestly, if you build an amenity space now that's been delivered in 5 years' time, the market's generally shifted, and I think we're going to see a shift in the market right now in terms of what people want that amenity space. And then I think on technology is an interesting point, because you think about going around the building, it's all the touch points. Will we have to think about more automated type doors, maybe facial recognition for the lifts? I don't know. I'm talking wildly here, but I'm just saying.
No. I think it's a really good point. I read something about 80% of infectious diseases are spread by touching contaminated surfaces. So it's definitely something that we've got to now stand up and think about. Definitely, especially when the technology is there, as you say, with opening doors. Why don't, I suppose it's just a cost thing, isn't it? Potentially, why we don't have Star Trek doors, so yeah. The
cost and operational costs of continuing to operate those sort of electric and automatic doors. I think most people have gone towards fob access, which obviously helps with the contact points. You're not touching keys as much. You're not doing that sort of stuff. But you've still got keypads at the front to sort of ring the concierge, things like that. And I think we have to think about how that might work in the future. Or again, extra cleaning regimes to try and defeat the virus.
Yeah, I think this. Just touching on the questions, actually, so what do you think residents are going to be mainly looking for in a BTR, I guess, product offering? And I guess it probably does lean on that. Are people, is it going to be is there an insistence on this now? Is that going to be one of the deal breakers almost?
I'll have a stab at answering that. I think that that people will there'll be a desire for better tech, and Alice's point about how you move around a building and certainly the connectivity in a building as well. And I think I think that's an absolute. I think separate to tech, I think what people get some comfort from is having a responsible professional landlord. And knowing that they've got security in that property, whether that's security that landlord's not going to sell the property and in a difficult market, or security we of course we as a large landlord, and I'm sure the same with Alastair and Nick as well, we've had residents contact us with problems, financial issues due to this their circumstances, and and showing a degree of flexibility with those customers, which is something obviously we would do anyway. I think that's what people will look for. So it's the owner operator sort of proposition that we have in all of our buildings that will become more appealing. And I think going back to Nick's earlier point about competing with the individual private landlord, absolutely agree. That's a big challenge in terms of price point. But I think having that stronger proposition for a customer does hold value as well.
I think that's where something like Movebubble comes in as well, because trying to compete, it's easy to compete once you've met that customer and you can talk to them about your product, the differentiation, and you're a single landlord, single manager, etc. But just seeing it in any marketing portal, you're looking at the price point and you're thinking, well, hold on, I can get £50 a week cheaper there. I'm going to go there first. So I think that's really important to try and get that point across at the earliest point as to how and why we're different. And I think overall, what are customers going to be looking for from a build to rent offering, post COVID? It's that safety and security that basically everybody is really looking for in life, first and foremost. And I think if people are in the rental market, in the private renting market, they're going to want, if they're going to want to find the best product they can possibly afford in that market to give them safety and security. And I think a lot of people will be reviewing that at this point, having spent a lot of time in their own home for the last 6 weeks, thinking, is this really where I want to be? I might be saving myself an extra £50, £100 a month, or actually do I want to be somewhere slightly bigger, where the apartment size is a little bit bigger and there's some nice amenities that I can use. You'd think again about having anywhere without some sort of access to outdoor space, wouldn't you? Definitely. And I think there was one other question came up about the closure of gyms and resident pushback during this time. Yes, we closed our gym space in our building, and there has been some pushback from residents. And I think it's a really tricky one. Quite honestly, we've just said we are looking out for your safety and following government guidelines. That is why it's closed. But we're trying to balance it now by bringing back as quickly as possible as many of the amenities as safely as possible during the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great.
Just on the communal spaces as well. We've actually offered discount on rent to people who have, because we've closed the spaces. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I think we sell applicants and residents on the spaces and the use of them, and how great they are in building a community. And people put value on that. And there is a build to rent premium because of obviously the management, but also those spaces as well. So we took the stance that, well, actually, if we're not operating them, they're closed. To build that customer rapport and obviously hopefully retention, we offered discount. Obviously not forever, it's in line with government guidelines and however long that may be. So hopefully we won't be offering discount come Monday, but yeah, that's what we've done. So we've had pushback on the spaces as well.
And kind of like deposits and things like that going forward, is it something you would look at because of, it's one of the questions actually about taking deposits. So is it something you would look at as an incentive? You probably already do this anyway, do you? Is a kind of like a free deposit or
we take deposits actually, and the reason for that, purely on the reason for that, some of the zero deposit schemes don't cater to, say, international students and things like that. But we take a minimal deposit, and I wouldn't see us changing that anytime soon.
Very good.
I think the question on deposit was also related to how, and there's another question there about how are we currently agreeing start dates for tenancies and taking reservation monies for someone to reserve a unit. And in answer to that, then obviously we would love to take a reservation from anybody at this time. What we're certainly saying to our customers is, look, we're not going to penalise you if suddenly the government proceed this lockdown for another month and they say, and you feel you can't move, then we'll move your start date. And we've done that for a number of our customers that are already reserved units for April, for May, and we've moved their start date along. And for some that have said, look, I'm an international student, I'm now not coming back to the UK, we've simply obviously refunded the reservation fee. So it's all about being sensible at this time, and I think it's really important. And Home Views have done a lot of work during this time that, you know, all of us in the build to rent sector come out looking good, you know, looking after our customers, looking after our residents, and showing that, you know, we are sort of leading the way in making sure that we're providing the best possible homes for people in this market.
One of the questions just came in asking about community video guides. So kind of, yeah, the Virtus ones, I've seen them, that, yeah, they look really good. I guess it's just that pushing, you know, selling your units the best you can, again, using Movebbubble as a platform, and obviously getting as much content as possible, including, you know, video in each property. But from a kind of, you know, I guess, all you guys now going to start uploading more content on the back of all this, you know, to again, to incentivize and really kind of try and sell your products as much as possible?
I think we will.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I think we will 100%. I think we're already doing as best we can with the footage that we have, the kind of brand videos about the spaces, showing them off in terms of filming residence events and things like that. But 100% we'll ramp that up. I think it's really key.
Yeah, as lockdown, has it been a blocker for you guys? Then you've not been able to, I guess, create content because of that, or not?
No, we haven't. And we will 100% do this for our next building at Lease Up. We will do professional videos of every single apartment. We did them on our latest development in Union Wharf. But the other buildings we haven't, and because we're at stabilisation in terms of occupancy, it's been a bit of a nightmare. So it's definitely a lesson learned for us. But alongside that, yeah, 100% content around the spaces and them being used, and, you know, what essential living offer basically.
Good. To answer another question, seems to be a lot about financial. So I guess projections on marketing plans and budgets. So you are going to be, obviously, on the back of that, you'll be revising your increasing your marketing budgets to I guess start reaching out to renters on the back of all this, or have you already taken an attack or defence stance?
So we've got, I think, 3 or 4 buildings which we're just sort of finalising budgets and things. Obviously, we've just launched something this week as well. So in terms of sort of how, I think we're looking at how we deploy our marketing slightly differently, and certainly using, you know, digital marketing, video walkthroughs very differently. And then going forward, I think, you know, our strategy will change. That doesn't mean we need to spend more money and have a higher budget, but certainly just trying to forecast. That's another question about how we can sort of tackle, you know, lease up rates in a you know, post-corona world. You know, we've something we're working on at the moment. We've got a few more months of lease up, and yeah, I mean, it's going to take a little bit longer, but it's about how we adapt to what's happening in the market, and how we keep ahead of the market as well, and do things a little bit differently.
So we've obviously we cut our marketing right down. Being in lease up on 10 George Street, it seems very pointless to continue spending at the same rate when definitely people weren't going to move. And we will look to ramp that back up, and we're looking to review the message of that as well, to try and align it with how we feel people will be thinking in the post-COVID market, what they will be thinking about. So yeah, I think looking at the messaging is really important on the marketing. And then, you know, in terms of absorption rates, we've essentially, we are hoping for a V-shaped recovery, and that things come back quite quickly. And that's sort of shown in our sort of lease up assumptions post-COVID. But, you know, we don't know. I think we've all got to be very flexible. The fact that anything can happen over the next few weeks, and even then, if lockdown gets released, a second lockdown could come in. So it's all about being flexible and having ensuring you're ready for any changes that come forward, really.
But I guess as soon as let's say, fingers crossed, lockdown's lifted next week, you'll be out there straight away, uploading as much content and obviously getting your properties on the platform and obviously getting them out there marketing wise straight away, I assume. Or do you think that's flooding the market with too much, or what do you think?
I think obviously, as soon as we get some news, we'll be looking to sort of redeploy marketing in the right areas. But I think, as Jon said, it's about putting it in the right place where you think the target market is going to see it, and also sort of trying to get a sense of, with the sort of deals we've got bubbling away now, what is the market sentiment going to be? For instance, at our price point once we come out of this. Are people still going to be willing to pay the same rents, or are we going to be in a position where we have to start reviewing our rents? And I think someone else said we'll be pushing for occupation or holding on rents. And I think everyone would say this, but it's very much a balance over the next few months. I'm relatively positive and that things will pick up, and I think the market will hopefully come back, and therefore I'm hopeful that we'll be able to keep our rents relatively stable and continue through our lease up as we were going. But obviously we're going to have to review it as we go along the next couple of months, and if we need to bring rents down a bit to increase our occupation, then we're going to have to do that.
Is that the important thing? Is it lease up, or is it holding a certain wait or holding out for a certain income, or is it more of just like lease up, get what you can?
I think it's a combination of the both, really. So I'm sure our models aren't massively different in terms of how quickly we need to stabilize a building and the ERVs we're trying to achieve. So quite clearly you can't sort of sit there with an empty building that's 20% above the rest of the market. If the market dictates that, so you've got to be sensible, but at the same time there is still demand. The big competition that we're seeing, and speaking to our agents, so the individual landlords will drop their rents by 20% and take a mortgage holiday for a few months. But on the flip side, people are still paying asking price rents and needing to move, genuinely needing to move quickly.
Yeah, I guess I read an article this morning about the countryside. The suburbs are obviously getting a lot of attention at the moment, with people wanting to get out of cities. And is it do you see that as if your building, especially Jonathan, you've obviously got that remit and across the UK, do you feel that's going to be the case, where there's going to be potentially more demand on the outskirts, maybe the suburbs, rather than in the cities? Or
I think so. I think looking at what we've got at the moment and just hearing that sort of anecdotal feedback from inquiries that we're receiving, we're getting our building in Sheffield, for example, Brook Place, the lease up rate hasn't changed that much during this lockdown period. So we've been securing lets on a weekly basis there. With some people have moved in safely, of course, and there's been a bit of flexibility with others on move dates. And the feedback we're hearing there is that people are moving from London back to Sheffield, or London to Sheffield, where smaller towns and cities, where away from city centres, away from lots of people, possibly. We don't have much in a sort of rural location, but I think smaller towns and cities with good rental markets have actually been pretty robust over the past few weeks.
That's interesting. And Alastair, have your portfolio is it solely Canary Wharf based?
Yeah, so we are very much dependent on the Canary Wharf market. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes back. And as you alluded to earlier, the number of offices that get back to full capacity, which is certainly not going to happen in the short term, or probably medium term. But also we have quite a significant amount of leasehold competition in that market. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how we get on. I think although an issue for us in other ways, the delay of the other two assets into sort of later this year, early next year, is probably no bad thing. So we can concentrate on the first 327 apartments, get those away, get that building occupied, and then look to the next 636 and 174 next year. But yeah, I think a diversity of portfolio for investors at this time is obviously going to be absolutely key to make sure they are hitting a number of different markets. We are, just working towards the fact that there is enough depth in our market to take up the stock that we've got coming forward, and our stock is relatively individual, and it's the only stock that's actually on the Canary Wharf estate.
I think the question came in saying, will your next BTR building be in London, Alastair?
Most likely, yes.
Okay. So I guess maybe we could probably wrap it up there. Maybe end on a high. I think Anonymous has sent this message in. The build-to-rent buildings are so much nicer than standard apartments. As high-end professionals are likely to be working from home, surely this is a big opportunity. So nice little ending on a high there. I do agree. So and here's Dave to conclude.
Well, I have to say thank you for an absolutely fascinating debate. A lot of the topics been discussed on a series of forums, but there have been some really interesting practical views from you guys that I will certainly take away. I hope the audience have enjoyed the conversation, as I certainly have, and I look forward to you joining us again on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. But David, Alastair, John, and Nick, just thank you once again for your insights, for the debate. It was great fun. We'll be producing a version of this, publishing on our website as soon as possible. We will also be answering any questions that weren't answered. I think most of the questions got answered during the session. Again, once again, thank you, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Cheers.